Thank you for having us today. After nearly a year, I found myself back in the field of sales. My mouth was going dry as I greeted our client with a hoarse voice. The memory of my failure from a year ago flashed in my mind, making me want to run away. Just then, my female supervisor, Susan, who was standing next to me, gently patted my back. When I glanced at her, she nodded reassuringly, as if to say everything would be all right. Encouraged by her, I put all my strength into delivering my sales pitch. At that moment, I had no idea yet. I had no idea how much meeting her would impact my life. My name is Charlie. Until about a year ago, I thought I was walking a fairly smooth path in life. I graduated from a prestigious high school and got into a well-known university straight away. Then returned to my hometown to join the Riverside branch of Clearwater Bakery. Even though friends and professors from my university told me I could find a better job with my degree, I had a strong reason to return home. My mother was often ill, and I wanted to be there for her as much as possible. My father had passed away before I started elementary school, and my mother raised me on her own ever since. When my mother collapsed at work during my university years, I decided I would work in my hometown. Clearwater Bakery is a nationwide company, but their local products are developed and manufactured at the branch offices. I was fortunate enough to be assigned to the product development department, as I had hoped. Being a local myself, I had a good sense of the community's food preferences. Initially, I assisted senior employees in product development, but after 3 years, I began taking on more central roles and projects. It was around my 31st birthday, about a year ago, that I stumbled into trouble. I had a disagreement with my direct supervisor, David, who was the team leader for new product development. I believe we should use locally grown pears. It would support local consumption and the quality is vastly superior. I expressed my opinion about using pears in a new tart-style pastry. David furrowed his brow and said, "We can't afford any more costs. Our pastries are already more expensive than competitors because of the quality. If we get left behind in the price competition, it'll hurt our sales." He insisted on using cheaper imported pears. My colleagues understood my point but advised me to follow David's lead. Had I heeded their advice, things might have turned out differently. However, I was adamant about using local pears. As I toured local farms in line with our company's policy of supporting local consumption, I grew determined to incorporate their produce. Despite my persistence, David forced a team vote and his opinion prevailed. Not only that, but he also accused me of deliberately obstructing product development and demanded my transfer from the department. Coincidentally, there was an opening in the sales department at that time, sealing my fate. Responding to David's complaint, the management transferred me to the third sales division. Despite being removed from product development, I wasn't disheartened. In fact, I was determined to excel in sales to earn more money for my mother's medical bills. But that determination backfired, and I soon fell out of favor with my new boss. 3 days after joining the third sales division, I went on a sales call with my manager, Jim. Jim offered to show me the ropes, as I had no experience in sales. The key is to make regular visits. Even if we don't see immediate results, our persistence could eventually lead to sales. Jim explained as we headed to a drugstore that sold not just medicines and daily necessities, but also food items. Nervous on my first sales call, I tried the sales pitch techniques I had learned over the past 3 days. I leveraged my product development background to highlight the benefits of our new products. The client listened with a smile, but Jim interrupted me, saying, "Stop with the self-centered sales talk. They're taking time out for us." We quickly left the store after Jim apologized to the client. Apparently, the purpose of today's visit was to greet the client and thank them for their continued business. And Jim had already settled the sales negotiations over the phone. In other words, I had wasted their time by rehashing an already decided deal. Honestly, I can't trust someone like you with sales. You're on menial tasks from tomorrow, Jim declared. Since that failure, I haven't been taken on any sales calls despite being in the third sales division. Unable to quit the job due to my mother's situation, I've spent the past year doing menial tasks. One day, a female employee transferred to the third sales division from Clearwater Bakery's headquarters. My name is Susan. My title is assistant manager, but I'm new here, so I look forward to your guidance and support. The female employee, who was more than 10 centimeters taller than me in her pumps, was named Susan. With well-maintained black hair tied in a ponytail, she was a striking beauty with distinctive almond-shaped eyes. She had a gentle demeanor, always responding with a warm smile no matter who spoke to her. However, when it came to work, her expression turned sharp and she spoke clearly, leaving many employees wide-eyed at the contrast. Rumors among the staff suggested that Susan was an elite from the headquarters. And she is here to learn managerial duties while overseeing the branch's operations as an assistant manager. Indeed, shortly after her arrival, she brought a fresh approach to our sales team by calmly suggesting, "I have a proposal," and introduced a sales method used at the headquarters. Susan was also a graduate of a prestigious university, but she had lived a completely different life from mine. I perceived her as a distant figure, so I was surprised when she approached me on her third day during lunch break. "You're Charlie, right? Why aren't you going on sales calls?" she asked gently. Although she seemed to be around my age, her title as assistant manager placed her above me. Determined not to be disrespectful, I straightened up and replied nervously, "Well, I'm mainly in charge of menial tasks." When she asked what I meant by that, I explained how I had not been taken on any sales calls since my blunder a year ago. She nodded slightly and said, "I see. Thank you," before leaving. I thought our lives would never intersect again, feeling a bit disappointed. However, over the next week, Susan spoke to me frequently, whether it was for menial tasks or not. Her main topic was the limited edition products developed at the Riverside branch. She thought I could provide detailed insights on local products despite being in the sales division, given my background in product development. Of course, I know the product data, but hearing from the person who developed them is invaluable, she said, smiling brightly like a child while savoring a local bread. I was grateful to Susan for treating me without prejudice, despite my ostracized status since my failure a year ago. 10 days after Susan's arrival, she directly asked Jim if she could go out on sales calls herself, having learned the managerial tasks under him. Jim hesitated for a moment but then agreed, "You've completed our training curriculum, so there's no issue." "All right, someone will guide you." Susan waved her hand dismissively and said, "I'll go with Charlie. It's a waste to leave talent unused. I'd like him to experience sales. Is that all right, Jim?" With a gentle yet insistent smile, she persuaded Jim. Reluctantly, Jim sighed and said, "Charlie, it's your turn. Don't screw up," instructing me in a resigned tone. Surprised by this unexpected opportunity, I stood up and said, "Yes. I'll get ready right away," gathering the necessary materials before heading out of the office with Susan. Naturally, I took the driver's seat in the company car. From the passenger seat, Susan, looking at her phone, directed, "We've got an appointment with Parker's Market. But there is still some time. So let's stop by a nearby branch first. As long as we make it to their headquarters by 11. Her clear and decisive tone was a stark contrast to her previous gentle manner, almost overwhelming me. This must be her work mode. Parker's Market was a local supermarket chain centered in my area. Susan, who had recently moved here, hadn't yet had a chance to thoroughly check out Parker's Market. "I want to see what products they have with my own eyes," she said passionately, prompting me to park at one of their branches. After spending about 20 minutes browsing the store, we hurried to the Parker's Market headquarters. Despite the sudden visit, the store's representative, John, graciously welcomed us into the meeting room. After exchanging pleasantries and presenting our gifts, we prepared to start the business discussion. "Thank you for having us." My mouth was dry, and I couldn't speak as smoothly as I wanted. The memory of my failure from a year ago haunted me. If I failed again, I might lose my job this time. Feeling anxious, I felt Susan gently pat my back. I recalled the words she had said to me in the car on our way here. "If anything happens, I'll back you up. Give it your all. Don't worry, I've got your back." Wanting to repay Susan for giving me this chance, I steeled myself and presented the prepared materials to John. "Today, we've brought a new bread we're planning to launch. As you can see in the data, it has a stronger wheat aroma and a more elastic texture than our previous products." When I signaled to Susan, she promptly took out samples of the bread, cut them into bite-sized pieces, and offered them to John. John nodded as he tasted the bread. Indeed, wheat lovers will find this irresistible. The texture is excellent. It should be great toasted as well. Sensing his interest, I decided to use the knowledge I had gained during our visit to the Parker's Market branch. Parker's Market sells vegetable jams made collaboratively by local farmers, right? I think these jams would pair wonderfully with this bread. What do you think? As if she had been waiting for my words, Susan laid out the 5 types of vegetable jams we had purchased earlier at Parker's Market on the table. John sampled each jam on the bite-sized pieces of bread and said, "This is excellent. These jams, which are made to highlight the natural flavors of the ingredients with minimal seasoning, pair wonderfully with your bread's strong wheat aroma. This is fantastic. I'd love to sell them as a set." He acknowledged the great pairing of the bread and vegetable jams. Sensing this was my chance, I began presenting one new product after another to John. I not only covered the information in the materials but also delved into more detailed explanations, which made John nod in appreciation multiple times. After nearly 2 hours of discussion, he concluded, "Thank you for introducing such wonderful products. We'll be ordering not just the bread but also a variety of other products in greater quantities. We look forward to working with you more closely." Not only had we achieved our primary goal of selling the bread, but we also succeeded in increasing the variety and quantity of products Parker's Market would carry. I stood there, mouth agape at the unexpected outcome. Susan lightly patted my back and said, "Thank you for your continued support. We look forward to working with you," bowing her head. Following her lead, I bowed as well, saying, "We appreciate your support," savoring the success of our sales effort. On the drive back to the Riverside branch, Susan voiced her admiration. "I knew you were capable, but I didn't expect you to be able to pitch the products so well, especially when I called on you so suddenly. How were you able to explain the products so fluently?" It turned out that Susan wanted me to re-experience sales as a stepping stone for my return to the field. But she hadn't expected such a successful outcome. I still keep in touch with the guys in the product development department. They often ask me to taste new products during the development process. Even as a newbie, they trusted my palate, I explained. Despite being transferred to the sales department, my colleagues in product development still saw me as one of their own, often seeking my advice on new products. The breads we pitched today at Parker's Market were ones I had tasted extensively during their development, allowing me to provide John with detailed information not included in the materials. "I see, that explains it. In any case, you can return to the office with your head held high now," Susan murmured with a proud expression on her face. I was glad to see her happy. I was more pleased about the fact that Susan was happy than about the success in sales. After we returned to the office, Susan reported our success to the members of the 3rd Sales Division, leaving them astonished. But Susan remained composed and said, "If you doubt it, feel free to contact John at Parker's Market. He'll tell you how excellent the presentation was." With a calm smile, she declared. Then she glanced at me and continued, "Sure, he might have failed once, but he has the skills to succeed in negotiations like today. Instead of writing him off for a single mistake, isn't it important to create an environment where talents like Charlie can thrive?" she asked Jim. Thanks to Susan's advocacy, I was allowed to start going on sales calls with the other employees from the next day. For the next 6 months, I worked diligently to make the most of the opportunities Susan had given me. I didn't think I had ever worked as hard, not even during my university entrance exams or my time in product development. As a result, 6 months later, I had achieved one of the top sales records in the 3rd Sales Division. Around that time, I heard a rumor. Susan was going to return to the headquarters soon. If that happened, I might never see her again. Feeling desperate, I invited her to dinner one day during lunch break. Under the pretense of formally thanking her for giving me a chance to go on a sales call after a year. I expected her to decline, but she agreed with a smile. After work, we sat across from each other at a chic French restaurant near the station. "Thanks to the opportunity you gave me, I've been able to establish myself as a member of the sales team. I'm truly grateful," I said, bowing deeply shortly after our toast. Susan chuckled softly and shook her head. "I only gave you the chance to take the first step. Everything else is thanks to your hard work and talent. You did an excellent job." She praised me gently, in a tone different from her work mode. Her more natural voice made my heart race as I asked the question I had always wanted to ask. "Why did you give me that chance back then?" I've always wondered what made you take notice of a menial worker like me. Susan fell silent, gazing into space thoughtfully. Then, widening her almond-shaped eyes, she said with a slightly playful tone, "Maybe because you reminded me of my younger self." She began to share her own experiences. "I used to play volleyball in school. With my build and decent athleticism, I was quickly picked as the ace when I started high school. But not everyone liked that, and I faced some harassment from classmates and seniors. As our wine refills arrived, we both took a sip." Susan continued after a slow exhale. "One senior spoke up during a meeting, asking why they were dragging me down when everyone knew I had the skills. She said helping me perform at my best would lead the team to victory." Susan paused, frowning slightly, and then shook her head. That senior had lost her starting position to me. When I later asked why she spoke up for me, she simply said it was the right thing to do. I was deeply moved and decided I would always help someone in a similar situation. So that's how it was. When I expressed my gratitude for her sharing this, Susan waved her hand dismissively and said, "It's really just my own satisfaction. So don't worry about it. More importantly, I assigned you to that negotiation because I believed you had the skills. Based on what I heard about your work in product development and as a menial worker." She had done her research on me without my knowing. Despite her busy schedule, she took the time to look into a single subordinate's background, truly exemplifying what a manager should be. Before I could express this to her, she clapped her hands and said, "Oh, by the way, I heard that the product development team is rallying to have you back. It seems they're ready to take you in. Are you planning to return?" She asked about a topic that had only been discussed internally. Surprised that she knew about it, I replied, "Actually, I'm torn. I know the product development work is fulfilling, but I really enjoy my sales work now. And above all," I swallowed hard, just like on that day 6 months ago, and encouraged myself. I would regret it if I didn't say it now. With the determination to avoid that regret, I looked Susan straight in the eye and said, "Right now, I don't want to be apart from you. I want to stay in the sales department because I want to be with you for as long as possible." I expressed my honest feelings directly. Perhaps shocked by my words, Susan's face turned red as she said, "I'm surprised. Can you explain that a bit more? I don't want to misunderstand in a weird way." She pressed her tear-filled eyes. Worried, I explained that my initial feelings were admiration and respect, but as we worked together, the time spent with her became invaluable. I earnestly conveyed that now I wanted to walk through life together with her. Susan, after taking a deep breath and looking at me, said, "I'm going back to the headquarters soon. When that happens, I'll suggest to both the headquarters and Riverside branch that you be assigned to the headquarters as well." Her statement confirmed the rumors and surprised me with the proposal of being assigned to the headquarters. "What does that mean exactly?" I asked, puzzled. Susan raised her hand to signal me to wait and, with a gentle smile, explained, "Charlie, you once said that if you ever returned to product development, you would want to be involved in developing nationwide products. Not just local ones. The headquarters product development department is looking for new talent." When I mentioned a promising employee with experience in both product development and sales, they were eager to have you. As I listened to her, I felt a surge of excitement. It reminded me of a lunch conversation we once had. I had come to understand the joy of sales, but I still wanted to return to product development someday. My true desire was to be involved in developing nationwide products for Clearwater Bakery. I'm very pleased with the proposal. But how does this relate to what I just confessed? I asked, still confused. She smiled wryly and said, "You're surprisingly dense. It means I feel the same way you do. Let's be a couple and work together at the headquarters. Of course, I remember you telling me about your mother, so I won't force you if it's too difficult." She looked at me with lowered eyes. Amazed that my heartfelt confession had succeeded, I bowed vigorously, saying, "Thank you very much," only to hit my forehead on the table. Susan, stifling a laugh at my clumsiness, gently touched my reddened forehead and said, "Charlie, you're unexpectedly clumsy. That's cute too. Let's get to know each other better from now on." She gently caressed my reddened forehead. After becoming Susan's boyfriend, I was deeply troubled about the headquarters assignment. Her proposal was extremely attractive, and I truly wanted to work at the headquarters. From the moment she mentioned it, I had been eager to start at the headquarters. However, I felt guilty about leaving my ailing mother behind. Seeing my dilemma, Susan made an unexpected proposal. Let's talk to your mother about everything. I'd like to meet her too. With that, she came to the apartment where I lived with my mother. My mother was surprised by the sudden introduction of my girlfriend, but she quickly took a liking to Susan's straightforward personality and said, "He's a bit unreliable, but please take care of him," clearly pleased. After the introductions, Susan made another surprising statement. "Ma'am, would you consider moving to Tokyo with us? In Tokyo, there would be more hospital options. Of course, if you prefer to stay here, we will respect that. But I don't want to give up on either him or my job. If I was worried about leaving my mother, why not take her with us?" It was an idea that had never occurred to me. Explaining the details to my astonished mother, Susan patiently outlined everything. Listening and nodding, my mother turned to me and said, "Don't worry about me. You two go to Tokyo. You've done enough for me." She took a bank book from the living room cabinet and handed it to me. "This is the money you gave me for hospital bills. I've saved it all here, so take it with you. If you came to introduce her to me, it means you're serious about getting married. You'll need money for various things, so here you go." My mother had been saving the money I gave her for hospital bills, planning to return it to me one day. Refusing it would be like rejecting her kindness. Accepting the bank book with both hands, I said, "Thank you. I'll do my best." Feeling a warmth in my chest, I declared my resolve. Meanwhile, Susan, with teary eyes, took my mother's hand and said, "Thank you, ma'am." With a trembling voice, I thanked my mother. Assigned to the headquarters, Susan and I achieved outstanding results in our respective departments, earning recognition for our work in product development and sales. The success I found in developing several hit products was largely due to my experiences in both regional product development and sales. 1 year after starting at the headquarters, Susan and I shared the same last name and began living under one roof. Now, Susan was taking the vacation days she had hardly used before, preparing for the future. Less than a month after our wedding, we learned that she was expecting. "I want to make sure everything is perfect for this baby. Don't worry, your mother will be coming soon. So, you can go to work with peace of mind," Susan said as she saw me off, already looking every bit a mother. Gently caressing her belly, I said, "All right, I'm off," and stood on tiptoe to kiss my wife. Determined to bring happiness to Susan and our child who changed my life, I set off to work with renewed purpose. I could feel my sense of responsibility as a husband and a father growing stronger every day.